Hey everyone, I'm working to hit 1,000 subscribers, and I need your help to get there. If you enjoy the content, please hit that subscribe button right now.
What's up, tennis fanatics, and welcome back to Champions Tennis. Before we dive into the absolute chaos that just unfolded, I need you to do me a massive favor. If you're not already subscribed to this channel, hit that subscribe button right now, because we're about to expose some truths about the tennis world that the mainstream sports media won't touch with a 10-foot pole. And if you love drama, tennis, and watching history being made in real time, you're in exactly the right place. Now let's get into the absolute madness that has the entire tennis world buzzing. Arina Sabalenka just went completely off script. The two-time Australian Open champion, the absolute beast of women's tennis who crushes opponents like they're practice dummies, just had the most unexpected and brutally honest reaction to Eala's breakthrough into the WTA Top 50. And I'm telling you right now, what she said has sent shockwaves through the locker rooms in Melbourne. This wasn't your typical politically correct athlete response. This was raw, unfiltered reality from one of the most dominant players on the planet. And it reveals something absolutely fascinating and slightly terrifying about how the elite really view the next generation of players climbing up the rankings to challenge their throne. But before we get to Sabalenka's explosive comments, we need to understand exactly what Eala just accomplished, because calling it impressive would be the understatement of the century. This is the kind of achievement that changes everything. This is the kind of breakthrough that separates the dreamers from the legends. Eala is now ranked number 49 in the world. She is officially in the WTA Top 50. She is among the elite players on this planet, and the journey to get there is nothing short of miraculous. Let me paint you a picture of where this girl was just 12 months ago. Rewind the clock to January 2025. Eala was ranked 138 in the world. She was grinding through the ITF circuit, which, for those who don't know, is basically the minor leagues of professional tennis. We're talking about playing matches in front of maybe 3 spectators and someone's dog in obscure locations you've never heard of, battling for ranking points that barely make your ranking needle move a fraction of a percent. She was the definition of a hopeful prospect, a talented player that people whispered about, but nobody really expected to break through this fast. She was fighting in the trenches, earning maybe a few $100s per tournament after expenses, living the unglamorous reality that 99% of professional tennis players experience. Now she's ranked 49 globally. She's rubbing shoulders with Grand Slam champions. She's competing against Olympic medalists. She's facing off against the icons she grew up watching on television, dreaming that one day she might compete at their level. And she's not just competing, she's winning. She's taking scalps. She's making veterans sweat. From rank 138 to rank 49 in essentially 1 calendar year. Do you understand how insane that climb is? Most players spend their entire careers trying to crack the top 100. Eala blew past that barrier like it was a speed bump and kept her foot on the accelerator all the way into the top 50. The breakthrough that shattered every expectation came at the ASB Classic in Auckland, New Zealand. This was a WTA 250 event, which in tennis terms means it's not one of the massive tournaments, but it's still a legitimate tour-level competition, with quality players and real ranking points on the line. Eala didn't just show up and participate. She didn't just win a round or two and call it a good week. She absolutely dominated her way to the semifinals, destroying quality opponents and proving beyond any shadow of doubt that she belongs at this level of professional tennis. Her quarterfinal match against Poland's Magda Linette was the moment when casual tennis fans started paying attention. Linette isn't some random qualifier who got lucky in the draw. This is a woman who has been ranked as high as number 19 in the world. This is a player who reached the semifinals of the Australian Open just a couple of years ago, taking down top seeds along the way. She's a crafty veteran who has been on tour for over a decade and knows every single trick in the book. She's faced the best players on the planet and taken matches off them. Eala beat her in straight sets. Not a close 3-setter where she squeaked through on a few lucky points. Straight sets. She showed the kind of composure, shot-making ability, and tactical intelligence that separates the good players from the truly great ones. Then in the semifinals, Eala ran into Wang Xiu of China, and this is where the Auckland run finally ended. Wang played absolutely brilliant tennis that day, hitting with that heavy lefty spin that actually mirrors Eala's own game style, creating a fascinating tactical battle between two left-handed players who understand exactly how to exploit the angles and spins that righties struggle with. Wang was just slightly better on the crucial points, and she ended Eala's magical run. But here's the thing that everyone needs to understand. Getting to the semifinals was more than enough. Making the semis of a WTA tournament is a massive achievement. The winner of the tournament ended up being top seed Elena Svitolina, a former world number 3 and one of the most consistent performers in women's tennis over the last decade. But let's be completely honest about what everyone at the tournament was actually talking about. It wasn't Svitolina's victory. It was the Filipino phenomenon who had just announced her arrival on the world stage in the most emphatic way possible. That semifinal run in Auckland lifted Eala exactly one spot from her previous career-high ranking of 50. She had been knocking on that door for weeks, hovering right at the edge of history, and she finally kicked that door clean off its hinges. The rise hasn't been a fluke or one lucky tournament where everything went right. This has been steady, methodical, and built on actual sustainable results rather than a Cinderella story that vanishes when the clock strikes midnight. Now, here's where the story gets absolutely spicy and where Sabalenka enters the picture. During her pre-tournament press conference in Melbourne ahead of the Australian Open, Aryna Sabalenka was asked about Alex Eala's breakthrough. The reporter probably expected the standard cookie-cutter athlete response that we've all heard a million times. You know the type. Oh, she's a nice young player, good for the sport, exciting to see new talent, blah, blah, blah. The kind of meaningless platitude that says absolutely nothing while sounding vaguely supportive. That's not what happened. Sabalenka went absolutely nuclear with enthusiasm and honesty. "This girl is unbelievable," Sabalenka said, and you could see her eyes widening with genuine excitement. This wasn't fake, media-trained enthusiasm. This was real recognition from someone who understands exactly how hard it is to reach the level Eala just achieved. I've been watching her since she was playing juniors at the Rafa Nadal Academy. Everyone knew she was special, but to see her actually do it on the WTA Tour this fast, that's rare. Most players take years to break into the top 50. She did it in basically one season of playing real tour-level events. Coming from Sabalenka, this is massive. This isn't some retired player commenting from the broadcast booth. This is the woman who is currently the biggest threat to win the Australian Open for the third consecutive year. This is someone who has built an entire career on fearless, aggressive, high-risk tennis that overwhelms opponents before they can settle into the match. Sabalenka doesn't hand out compliments like participation trophies. She is a predator on the court. She respects power. She respects the fight. She respects the mentality of a winner. For her to recognize that same killer instinct inside Eala is a seal of approval that no amount of money can buy. But Sabalenka wasn't finished. She leaned closer to the microphone and dropped a quote that should be printed on posters in every junior tennis academy on the planet. "The thing about Alex is she doesn't play scared. She goes for her shots. She competes like she believes she belongs, and that's the hardest thing to teach. You either have that mentality or you don't. She has it." Let that sink in for a second. Sabalenka is identifying the one quality that separates the champions from everyone else. It's not the forehand speed or the footwork or the serve. Those things are important, but they can be trained. What can't be trained is the absolute belief that you deserve to be on that court with the best players in the world. That fearless mentality of going for your shots, even when the pressure is crushing, even when you're playing someone ranked 60 spots higher than you, even when the entire stadium expects you to fold. That's what champions are made of, and Sabalenka sees it in Eala. Then Sabalenka pivoted. The smile disappeared from her face for a moment, and she got deadly serious, adding something that made every journalist in the room start writing furiously. "The top 50 is great," she said, her voice dropping to a lower, more intense tone. "But it's also where things get really hard. Everyone in the top 50 is good. Everyone can play. The difference between 50 and 20 isn't just talent, it's consistency. mental toughness, and handling expectations. That's going to be her next test. This is not shade. This is not Sabalenka trying to downplay Eala's achievement or plant seeds of doubt. This is a battle-hardened veteran giving a reality check to a rising star. This is someone who has been through the absolute meat grinder of professional tennis, warning the new generation that the easy part is over. Sabalenka is pointing out what every single player discovers when they finally break into that top 50. All the easy matches disappear completely. When you're ranked in the top 100, you might draw a few early rounds against players who are struggling with form or injuries, or players who are just happy to be competing at that level and don't really expect to win. In the top 50, every single woman standing across the net from you is an absolute killer. They all have legitimate weapons in their game. They all have professional level fitness. They all have coaches and support teams analyzing your every weakness. The margins between winning and losing become microscopic. A few points here or there decide entire matches. One bad service game costs you the set. One mental lapse destroys your tournament. Now let's zoom out and talk about what Eala's rise actually means for the global tennis landscape, because this is bigger than just one player's ranking improvement. The Philippines is not a tennis powerhouse. It's not even close. This is a basketball nation through and through. Walk down any street in Manila and you'll see basketball hoops on every corner. Kids playing pickup games in every neighborhood. Professional basketball games drawing massive crowds. Tennis doesn't have the infrastructure. It doesn't have the government funding. It doesn't have the national attention that it receives in traditional tennis countries like the United States, Spain, France, or Australia. For Eala to break through from that background makes her achievement even more absurd when you really think about it. She is doing something that no Filipino player has ever accomplished at this level in the professional game. She's not following a well-worn path created by previous generations of Filipino tennis stars. There is no path. She is literally hacking her way through a jungle with a machete, creating a trail where none existed before. The pressure of being the first, of carrying an entire nation's hopes and dreams on your shoulders is immense, but she's handling it. Her training at the Rafa Nadal Academy in Mallorca, Spain, has been the absolute X factor in her development. This facility isn't just some fancy tennis club with nice amenities and fluffy towels. This is a Spartan elite performance center, where future champions are systematically manufactured through world-class coaching, cutting-edge sports science, and an environment of relentless competition. Eala has been living there for years, completely immersed in the culture of excellence, absorbing wisdom from some of the best coaches in the sport, and practicing daily against the best junior players in Europe. And here's something that will blow your mind. There are multiple reports from people at the Academy that Rafael Nadal himself, yes, the 22-time Grand Slam champion, and arguably the greatest clay court player in the history of tennis, has personally stepped onto the practice courts to give Eala tips and corrections during training sessions. Can you even imagine the confidence boost when one of the greatest athletes in the history of any sport takes 5 minutes out of his day to fix your backhand technique or explain court positioning? You don't just learn a technical adjustment. You learn that you matter. You learn that you have what it takes. You internalize the belief that you belong at the highest level. After her breakthrough run at the ASB Classic in Auckland, Eala didn't go home to the Philippines to celebrate with parties and media appearances. She went directly to Melbourne for more intensive preparation before the Australian Open. And this is where the story gets even more insane and shows you just how seriously the tennis establishment is taking this young player. She was invited to compete in the Kuyong Classic, which is an exclusive exhibition event designed to give elite players high-quality match practice in the days before the Australian Open begins. The Kuyong Classic invited only 4 WTA players this year, and Eala was one of them. Eala posted on her social media, and you could feel the pride and disbelief in those words. Let that fact sink in for a moment. They didn't invite the player ranked 80th in the world. They didn't invite some random journeyman who has been on tour for 10 years. They invited Alex Eala, who at the time of the invitation was still battling to crack the top 50. That selection tells you everything about how seriously the tennis establishment, the tournament directors, the sponsors, and the television networks are taking her. You don't get invited to Kuyong unless you put butts in seats. You don't get that invitation unless people want to watch you play. The other three women invited to the event were Donna Vekic from Croatia, who reached the Wimbledon semifinals in 2024 and won an Olympic silver medal representing her country. Priscilla Hahn from Australia, giving the home crowd a local player to support, and Daniela Hantuchova, the legendary former world number 5, who was there for the nostalgia factor and legends appeal. These are serious names. These are established stars and fan favorites, and Eala was right there with them. Here's the kicker that makes this whole thing even more ridiculous. Eala had already beaten Vekic at the ASB Classic just days before they faced each other again at Kuyong. Vekic is not some pushover. This is a legitimate top-level player with 4 WTA singles titles and a career-high ranking of 19. She has wins over multiple Grand Slam champions. She has years of experience at the highest level of the sport. Eala didn't just beat her once through adrenaline and good fortune. She beat her twice in the span of 1 week. The first match in Auckland was a brutal 3-set war where both players left everything on the court. The second match at Kuyong, a straight sets dismantling. Eala won more convincingly the second time when Vekic knew her game. When Vekic had a specific game plan designed to neutralize Eala's strengths. When Vekic had every reason to be motivated for revenge. That rapid improvement, that ability to make better adjustments than your opponent between matches, is what separates future stars from players who peak in the top 50. That is the mark of high tennis IQ. That is the mark of a champion-level competitor. Sabalenka's reaction and her candid comments have sparked intense conversations among other players in the locker room this week. During practice sessions in Melbourne, several WTA stars have reportedly been discussing Eala's meteoric rise, and the reactions are mixed in fascinating ways. Some players see Eala as a legitimate threat, a dangerous left-handed player who spins the ball like Nadal on clay and fights for absolutely every single point, like her life depends on it. These players see her as someone who is going to take their spots in tournament draws, steal their prize money, and make their professional lives significantly more difficult in early rounds. But other players see Eala as something different, a goldmine for the sport itself. Why? The fans. The Filipino community has rallied around Alex Eala in a way that is almost terrifying in its passion and intensity. When she played her matches in Auckland, hundreds of Filipino fans either traveled all the way to New Zealand or came out of the local Filipino community to support her. We're talking about national flags everywhere, drums beating constantly, people screaming and chanting after every single point, regardless of whether it was a winner or an unforced error. It felt less like a regular WTA match and more like a Davis Cup tie or a World Cup soccer match. When she plays at the Australian Open this week, the Filipino presence in the stands is going to be absolutely deafening. Melbourne has a huge Filipino population, and you can bet that every single one of them who can get a ticket will be there making noise. Tennis desperately needs this kind of energy. The sport can sometimes feel a bit quiet, a bit too polite, a bit too sterile with its rules about silence during points. Eala brings a built-in army of supporters who create an electric atmosphere that makes the matches must-see television. Donna Vekic even commented on it after their match with genuine amazement in her voice, saying, "There's so many of you guys," while laughing at the sea of Filipino flags in the stands. The Filipino Tennis Federation is already planning how to capitalize on Eala's success to build infrastructure and develop the next generation of players. Corporate sponsors in the Philippines and across Asia are lining up to attach their brands to her rising star. The government is starting to pay attention to tennis as a sport that could bring international prestige. All of this attention and investment creates a virtuous cycle that could transform tennis in an entire region of the world. From a global perspective, having a superstar from Southeast Asia fills a gap that tennis has struggled with for decades. The sport has been dominated by European, American, and Australian players, with occasional breakthroughs from other regions. Having someone from the Philippines succeed at the highest level opens up an entire new market of potential fans and players. Kids in Manila and Cebu and Davao are now picking up tennis rackets for the first time because they see someone who looks like them, who comes from their country, competing against the best in the world. This is the kind of impact that transcends sports and becomes cultural. Eala is becoming a national hero and role model. She's proving that geographic location and national tennis infrastructure don't have to determine your ceiling if you have talent, work ethic, and access to world-class training. She's showing an entire generation that dreams can become reality through dedication and belief. The pressure on her shoulders is immense and will only grow heavier with every ranking milestone she achieves. The expectations from fans, media, sponsors, and her federation will become more intense. Every loss will be analyzed and criticized. Every victory will raise the bar higher. This is the reality of being a breakthrough star in any sport.